And 3, 2, 1, we are recording. Hello, Dave Mamano, host of the Gonzo Experience. So glad to have you here today. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I am honored that you're sharing some heartbeats with me today. And today I have on the show really kind of a legend for entrepreneurs. Warren Rustand has done so many things throughout his. Usually we don't say the age, but you're going strong, right? And I just love what you've done. Involved in EO, YPO, numerous businesses, numerous accolades through the years, including working with the White House. Just wrote a book. Warren Rustand, welcome to the show.
David, thank you so much. I'm glad to be with you. I'm looking forward to our time together. I think we'll have some fun.
Well, we met through Entrepreneurs Organization many years ago. You spoke at one of our events. And then I know that I've seen you a few times since then. In fact, you came to Rochester years ago. And because I had the honor of I had already met you at another EO event, I got to pick you up at the airport. So we got a little quality time. And I still remember you asked me to turn off the AC and roll down the windows because you wanted to enjoy the cool New York air coming from Arizona. You just wanted some fresh air, right? And but you've done some amazing things with your life, very well respected. And so Warren, for those people not familiar with you, maybe you could give us kind of a what do they say, the elevator pitch of your journey to date.
Well, it all starts with family, right? So I happened to marry the exact right person for me, who's made me better my whole life. We've been married 56 years. It's fantastic. We have 7 children, 6 boys and a girl. We have 19 grandchildren, and all 3 generations live together on a little farm in the middle of the city in Tucson, Arizona. So we're a 3-generation family. So when I go home from my office where I am today, it's about 2 minutes away from the house. We have, we'll have kids and grandkids all over the place just having fun. So we all get along well together. We have Sunday dinner together. We just have a lot of great experiences together. So family is critical and most important to us. And then from there, I got to play basketball at Arizona, was an academic All-American, went on to become a White House Fellow, and served as a special assistant of the Secretary of Commerce to the Vice President and Appointment Secretary and Cabinet Secretary of the President. Left the White House, got involved in a myriad of adventures, different things, and I've been CEO of 6 companies, all of which are in excess of $400 million, the largest of which was $2.5 billion, 17,000 employees, 14 countries. So it was a lot of fun. I'm currently mentoring about 40 CEOs who are all entrepreneurs, and have written a book, The Leader Within Us, which we just finished up, and generally having a great life. I'm having a wonderful time. I've been blessed and fortunate, and so things are going well. Well, my wife and I just recently completed a 5,000-mile back road journey through the Rocky Mountains of the United States, where nobody in these small towns had ever heard of COVID, let alone have it. And we just spent time traveling around, and we planned the next 25 years of our life. So we're ready to go and excited about our future.
Warren, you're living like the dream life, and I know it's not by luck. You've certainly had some blessings along the way, I'm sure you'll admit, but definitely, as you like to say, a life by design, right? Very, yes. Very instigative approach. Sounds like since you were a young man, picking the right wife, right? So, that's incredible, and very intentional with everything that you do, and it's paid off. And the fact that you have all those kids that want to live with you, on this farm, and the generations, and just spend time with you. I mean, what a dream come true. And I did read your bio, and it does say on your website, I believe, that you are 78, and you are 78 years young. I mean, you plan the next 25 years. I mean, why not 50, Warren? But we'll talk about that. But and you're still go, right? And mentoring all those CEOs and traveling, and what a fantastic mentor, really, for all of us to just look at your life as a blueprint for success. So thanks for doing that, Warren.
Well, that's really nice for you to say, but our children don't want to live with me. They want to live with my wife, so I want to make that correction.
Good cook. Okay. Is she a good cook, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they love her much more than they love me. They tolerate me, but they love my wife. So that's fantastic.
You're
right?
Being modest.
But I do believe, David, that we can, as young people, sit down and design the parameters, the structure, the framework of the life that we want to lead. And then we can go to live that life. I always tell our children, Don't let the job define where you live. Choose your geography. When you wake up in the morning, where do you want to wake up? And then what do you want to do? And those things should be compatible for a happy life. Don't go live somewhere you don't want to live just so you can make more money and be unhappy where you live, right? So design your life, decide where you want to live, decide the kind of place you want. I grew up on a farm near an isolated farm in Minnesota in the cold weather near the Canadian border. I loved the farm. So what do we live on? 45 years ago, we bought a farm, right? And our family grew up on a farm. We have goats and pigs and sheep and chickens, and the kids have work to do. We don't have ranch hands. We don't have people working with us or for us. We do it all ourselves. And it's because that's the way I was raised, and my wife loves that as well. And so it's just been fun in that way. But live the life we want to live, I think, is really important.
You wanted to have a farm, but not where it's bitter cold 9 months for the year, right? So
that's correct. Minnesota was not on the list.
No, good for you. And we've said the word life by design a few times, and I know a mutual friend of ours, and she's been on the podcast twice, Natalia Berdikian. You guys have partnered to create Life by Design Academy, and very focused on really harnessing and recognizing your energy levels to with laser precision, harnessing that energy to really help you lead the life that you want is what you're talking about. So,
well, that's right. I think, David, all of us have free choice, and we can exercise that choice in almost everything we do, from the people we associate with in a family and marry and have children, to our extended families, to the place we live, the cars we drive, the money we make. I mean, all those things are just choices that we make. And so I think what we want to do is be very intentional. I don't think there's any small decisions in life. I think every decision has consequence, and we have to live with those consequences, right? So if they're consequential, then let's be thoughtful about the choices we make and the decisions we make, and then let's go about designing our life.
So a lot of times, what propels people is a struggle. Um, have you had any struggle that propelled you to where you are, or were you just one of those guys that just, man, got it right from the start?
No, not at all, David. I see myself as very average, and I see myself as average intelligence, average physically, right? But for example, I decided after I was introduced to basketball when I was sort of 15 years old, I really liked it. And so I decided I'd like to play basketball at the highest level possible. And so that's an intention, right? And my intentionality then was to practice every day and practice more than other people did. So with an average body, I ended up, being an All-American and being drafted by the Golden State Warriors, right? And that's not a path that anybody would look at me and say, naturally athletic, naturally talented, but that's my determined path. And I think sometimes we have to decide our path, not let the world decide for us what our path is, right? And I don't want to live my life by serendipity and hope for good luck. I want to decide what it is I want to do and then work really hard to achieve it. In addition to that, David, I've had failures just like everybody else has had, personal and professional. I've done dumb things. I've made poor investments. I've made bad executive decisions. We all have that as our part of our life. And it's how we react to it that is the difference maker for people. I just happen to believe that those are speed bumps in life. We all get them. Adversity is a part of the deal. And our job is to overcome, be resilient, get on with life.
Can you share with us? We call it a crash and learn moment instead of crashing and burning. What's one thing that stands out in your past where, man, you really quote unquote messed up and you didn't know how you were going to get out of it, but you kept on pushing forward and picked up the pieces and rose like the phoenix again?
Well, I had a stunning thing happen to me when I was 18 years old. So at 18, I thought I was like the coolest guy in the entire world. Right? I mean, you can imagine that, David, right?
The looking basketball player, right?
I mean, I was a great basketball player. I had a body that was chiseled out of granite. I was supremely good looking, as you can see, right? All those things. Yeah, I was student body president. I was an honor student. All that stuff. And I was acting poorly, and I was allowing my ego to be out there. And a guy I really admired, his name was Clint South. He was the wrestling coach at my high school. He was a great guy. He was also a government teacher, and I was in his class, and I was being stupid. And one day after class, here's this man I greatly admired. He sat me down and said, "Warren, you're a jerk. And if you keep acting like this, you're never going to have any friends. You must make an adjustment. Your ego is out of control. That's all he said. He got up and walked away. Coming from a man I admire, that was stunning at the age of 18. That was a real blow to me. But I thought about that. He was right. He was 100% correct. I admire someone who has the ability and capacity to have difficult conversations. And he had one with me. I had to make some adjustments. I had to grow up. I had to contain my ego. I would have fallen flat on my face otherwise. And he helped me grow during that critical period. And I just really admire him. I've told him many times since then how much I admire him for what he did for me at that precise moment. And so I could have crashed and burned at that time, right? And by my own making, my own hand. But he helped me. And that was really beneficial to me.
Well, that's one of the things we love about you is you're so humble. You know, with all your success, you could have a huge ego, but you do have this humble farmer mentality, which I think makes you even more endearing to us. So, as we were talking about before we hit recording, you know, you certainly your good looks have gotten you a lot of great places. But and then there's the content, and then you know the way you bring it in a humble way. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we can dismiss the good look thing, I think. Yeah.
Well, I know your wife loves you. So.
We hope.
We hope. So Warren, you work in help and speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and you know we're a crazy bunch, a fragile bunch, a vulnerable bunch of people like yourself. You're one of us, right? What are some of the things that you do and teach us to be our best selves? Because you know a lot of entrepreneurs are putting on this great show, right? Everything looks fantastic, right? Magazine cover, nice house, beautiful spouse, nice cars. But you look behind the curtain and mentally, physically, financially, a lot of times there's a crap show going on. So how do you help entrepreneurs to really just live an intentional life of balance and truth and just managing it all? Because it's not for everybody. It is a roller coaster lifestyle that can be very difficult. How do you help people?
Well, it's a great question. And you're right. There are ups and downs to being an entrepreneur. Some days we're very successful and some days we're not quite as good. And we feel that roller coaster effect. We also, as a group, entrepreneurs take on more risk than most people, right? We are high risk, high adventure kind of people as a general rule. So, and typically entrepreneurs are not the top of their class as students. They tend to be B and C students, right? Because why? Because they're out creating businesses and stuff while they're students, or they're doing other kinds of things to grow and develop. But I do think there is a bit of a formula that we can use to prepare ourselves to be our better self and to be more consistent. Now, there are three great principles I talk about in the book, and they're the first of the three principles that we need to govern our life and lead a life by design. The first is clarity of vision. The notion that we step back, take time and space to really think about where are we going with our life? What are the outcomes we want to have? Can we create a path forward to those outcomes? Once we determine that, then we can do the second great principle, which is certainty of intent. The notion that now I know where I'm going, I need to act on that intentionally every day. And then the third piece is the power of values. Our core beliefs and values really matter, and how we model those influence other people, and they serve as the guide rails or the guideposts on our highway of life. And sometimes we meander a little left or right across the line, and sometimes we're back again, right? A little success, a little failure, a little up and down. But as long as we stay between the guideposts of the values that we hold dear, we have clarity of vision, we have certainty of intent, the opportunities for us open up like a giant 6-lane highway. And it's the preparation that's really critical. And most entrepreneurs get so excited about what they're doing, they don't step back to think about where is it I'm going? What are the outcomes I want? Then act on that intentionally and then drive it all with the power of our values. When we do those three things, my experience is across thousands of entrepreneurs is that their life gets enormously better, not just in business. Their family life gets better too. Their spousal relationships and partner relationships get better. They're better with their kids. They're better in their community. And they're really much better with themselves. And it all starts with, if I can lead me, then I can lead others. But if I can't lead me, it's very difficult for me to lead others.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Give yourself the oxygen mask first, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's huge. You remind me of probably a mutual friend, Cameron Harold. I'm sure you know Cameron, where
Yes.
when he talks about creating the vivid vision for your business,
Mhm.
where do you want to be in a year or 3 years, and whatever the time frame is, and act as if it had happened already, and what do you need to do to reverse engineer that to make it happen, right? And it's
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. You simply decide where it is you're going with clarity and then work backward from there to create the milestones you have to achieve it. But
yeah,
I think that same vivid vision applies to our family.
yeah,
We have to know where we're going with our family, right? And I think the same thing as we engage in the community, whether that be EO, YPO, or a not-for-profit or anything else where we're helping people, we have to have a vivid vision about why are we doing that? What are the outcomes we want to have? How do we render the greatest service, right? And with ourselves, who do I want to be when I'm 78 years old? Do I
yeah,
want to be somebody that looks over my shoulder and said, gee, I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda? Or do we want to say, you know what? I did some stupid things, but I'm okay with my life. They were my choice. I accept accountability and responsibility. Now let's figure out where we're going for the next 25. Right. And I just think that's a different attitude. The other thing I would suggest, David, is that I think there's a way, and I got this from sports, but I think there's a way that we need to start every day to prepare ourselves for success that day. And so I teach what's called 10, 10, and 10. The first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you put your legs out over the edge of the bed as soon as you realize you're awake, and you simply say to yourself, why am I alive today? What's my purpose for today? Right? And once we focus in on our purpose for the day, we begin the higher level thinking that drives us towards success. Then take 10 minutes and just be grateful. We know a heart of attitude for gratitude makes us better and happier. So let's just be grateful. And some people will call me after they start. I run out of things to be grateful for. And I said, holy cow, let me give you 10,000 things you can be grateful for. Okay. And we start down. There's so many things we can be grateful for. And then the next 10 minutes, read something inspirational. Chicken Soup for the Souls. There's a book called Thank You, another book called Positive Quotes, another book called Manual for Living. Read something from that that inspires you and lifts you up. And then the last thing, the last 10 minutes, get out your journal and journal about the great things that happened to you the day before so that you only write about the positive things. And you ask yourself, well, why would I do that? Well, because your children don't need to read about your junk. Just take the lessons that you learn from your bad things, put them in a positive context, and put them there for your children to learn from you. But when you're done, when your life is done, when I'm done, I can read 42 years of my dad's journals every day. If I die today, my kids can read 45 years of my journals. And it leaves a legacy and a genealogy of positive thinking for the children and grandchildren that come after you. I think that's a wonderful legacy to leave, but it's how we start our day every day. I've never been in a locker room with a bunch of basketball players or athletes who sit around saying, we're going to get killed today. It's not going to work out. This just isn't going to be good, right? We pump each other up. We get ourselves ready. We prepare our mind for success, for the win. And we have to do that every day because the world's a tough place. We get about 40 million stimuli a day in our brain, right? And we have to sift and sort and choose. Our choices matter. Every choice matters. And we have to be careful about that because there's a lot of negative stuff going on. And if we begin to believe that and it drives us, levels of anxiety go up, depression go up. There are a host of other social issues that develop from that. So let's be as positive as we can be every day. And let's start the day on a path of success.
yeah. It sounds like you have your version of the Miracle Morning, right?
Yep.
Hal Elrod, and actually Cameron Harold helped him write the entrepreneur edition of that. And I've embraced that. I love what you're doing. I've added exercise. I've added some meditation, some deep breathing. I have to exercise every morning, otherwise I start to, my energy a little bit needs to be burned off before I start my day.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, there are really four things that we have to get right every day. The first is how we wake up. We just talked about that. Immediately following that, because your mind is alert, ready, and fired up, you're positive, you go work out. My workout's 90 minutes every morning. Okay. An
Wow,
hour of cardio,
90
30,
minutes.
30 minutes of weightlifting, but an hour of cardio. And then the third thing you have to get right is nutrition, because within 30 minutes of a hard workout, you have to hydrate and you have to add protein. And then the fourth thing is you have to manage your time well. And most people get distracted easily, particularly entrepreneurs. The next shiny object, the next book, the next speaker, whatever it is, we're going to try that, right?
Yeah.
Rather than a disciplined, time managed process about working on your highest priorities. And if you can do those four things well, how you wake up, your physical exercise, what you eat, and managing your time, gonzo, as you would say. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity, right?
Absolutely. Well, and you're right. The time is a big thing because, I just had a guy, and you may know him, he's a big YPO guy, John Torrance, who wrote a book about entrepreneurs having ADHD and how to harness it, right? Instead of letting it distract you. And a lot
Exactly.
of entrepreneurs, you're right. We are ADHD, ADD, and we're, what's the next shiny, bright object that we're chasing, right? I can't criticize. I have a new one every week, and you have to like really learn to. All
Yeah,
right, let me put this shiny bright object in the desk drawer for a couple of weeks and still see if it's exciting a couple of weeks later, right?
that's right. That's right. I agree with you.
One thing I remember when I saw you speak is, yeah, I believe you talked about like I want to call it like cross training your brain a little bit. Like if you usually shave with your right hand,
Yeah.
uh, just mix it up and shave with your left hand and doing some things like that. Remind me about that, nugget of advice.
Well, we're such creatures of habit. Even entrepreneurs, right? We're all creatures of habit. How we get up in the morning, which we just talked about. So if I ask any audience, I say, "What did you do this morning?" Well, I walked the dog, brushed my teeth, went to the bathroom, got a cup of coffee, turned on TV, reached for a newspaper, checked my cell phone. Those are the most common things. Not one of those things prepares you for success. So we have to break down our routines and change our routines if we're going to get a different result. And you know that Albert Einstein and Henry Ford said the same thing using the same words, right? If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always gotten. The results never change unless you change the process. So what I suggest to people is if you're shaving in the morning and you have a ritual when you shave, you put the shaving cream on a certain way, you hold your razor a certain way, you always shave the left side of your face and then shave the right side and so forth. Women do the same thing in shaving their legs and so forth. We do the same thing when we're toweling off after a shower. Those are little examples, but they're examples that we are habitual by nature. We tend to wear the same clothes, drive the same car, drive the same route to work, eat the same food, right? Because we are habitual. Until we change that process, nothing changes in our life. The results and the outcome will never change. So hope is not a strategy. I hope things change. That's not a strategy, right? So the only thing we can do is really change our patterns and our habits. And I learned that a long time ago in sports, that if I wanted to be better, I had to do something different and more than all the competitors that I had who wanted the same goal, which was to play professional basketball. And so with this little old scrawny body and this not very good looking kind of thing and not much talent, I was able to get to the pros by doing stuff a little different, to break patterns down, to change patterns and habits. And I've been doing that my entire life. When we buy a company or take over a company, we go into it very differently. We create a totally different culture. And within 2 to 3 to 5 months, we have got everybody on board. It's cascaded completely. And we become high performance and we become high achieving companies. And I think there's a way to do that. There's a methodology for that. So, yeah, I think it matters. I think it matters.
Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I believe that was Albert Einstein, right?
I think that's right.
Yep. And it's so true. It's so true, right? No, that's great stuff. So your new book, The Leader Within Us, recently came out, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Tell us about the book, please.
Well, the book's been a long time making. People have been talking to me since way back, David, long before you and I took a drive in Rochester from the airport to the venue, right?
Mhm.
For 10 or 15 years, people have been saying, you need to write this stuff down. You need to write. And I didn't want to put myself out there. I didn't really want to do that. That wasn't sort of something that was on my list of my top 100 things to do. But I became convinced over time. There were some Forbes editors in a talk that I was giving, and they listened to me speak, and they came up to me afterwards and Advantage Books people, and they just said, we think there's a couple of books in here, maybe 5 books, stuff that you talked about, and would you write? And I said no. And they came back to me several times, and finally I decided that I would write, and it took me a couple of years just to write it and have fun with it. But I hope there are messages in there and a design based on principles that can affect people's lives in a constructive way. And so what I've done is I've taken 25 stories of entrepreneurs who have applied these very principles when they were at the depth of despair, when they were really in trouble. And I met them serendipitously sometime and other times had planned. I met them and we began a process that I've just described: clarity of vision, certainty of intent, power of values, and then practicing those principles every day and what's happened to them. And then I present their testimonial following their story so people know that it's true, right? This is really their story. but there's some miraculous turnarounds, some miraculous changes in people. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are practicing what I'm talking about, and whose lives are just different, not better or worse, just different than other people in their societies all across the world. So yeah, I think that this book is intended to be prescriptive. It's to say, here are 25 stories, learn what you can from these. Here are the principles that they applied, and here's how to apply those principles. Here are the actual tools that you can use starting tomorrow morning. Once you finish the book, start tomorrow morning, and you can change your life forever. Just do these things. So it's very prescriptive in that sense.
Buy it now, everybody. Go on Amazon. Right, The Leader Within Us by Warren Rustand. So great. So you've got 4 more books in you then, I guess, right? So
Well, I don't know about that. Yeah.
oh,
I
come
was
on.
looking at our 25-year plan. I just, I got to tweak it a little bit, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Add some more books. I love it. Very good. What do you got coming up? Is there any way that people can, I was on your website, you have a lot of events, speaking, anything that if people want to learn more about you, see you speak, get in touch with you, what are some ways to interact with you?
Well, a couple of ways. Number one, you could go to the website, which is warrenrustand.com, and I've got 18 episodes of Facebook Live on there, starting in March with how to deal with a crisis, how to deal with what we're talking about. And when that hit, I happened to be traveling in China a year ago, January, just so 13 months ago.
Wow.
Our second oldest son and I were traveling in China, Thailand, and Vietnam. And that's when we first heard about the virus. There's a little community called Wuhan, China. They were dealing with something, but nobody knew what it was. We came back, and of course, by mid-February, we were very aware of it here in the United States. And by the 1st of March, we were in lockdown. So I wanted to talk about sort of how I view the crisis, which is different than most. We gathered our family, all of us again living together on the property. We gathered our family and said, this is a real deal. This epidemic could become a pandemic. If it becomes a pandemic, what does that mean? And we went back and looked at what the Spanish flu did back in 1918, 1919, where 500,000 Americans died, 20 million people worldwide. It lasted for about 3 years. They used herd mentality and immunity to make it work, but they didn't have a vaccine at that time. They didn't go through the process we're going now. But we said, what does this mean to our family? If it becomes a pandemic, then we're going to have to be isolated. We're going to have to remove ourselves. We're going to have to stay on the farm, right? And how are we going to shop? How are we going to run our businesses? How are we going to do everything? And what time frame should we look at? Most people were thinking this is going to be over in weeks and months. And they took a short-term view. And all those who took a short-term view got damaged, right? We took a 2-year view. We believe this thing's not going to be over until February of 2022, and it might be lingering after that. So we took a 2-year horizon and did all of our planning around a 2-year horizon for our families, our businesses, our community, and ourselves. And we think that's helped us in this process. We did not take a short-term view. So we haven't been frustrated by this. We haven't been upset by this. My wife and I just got our second shots yesterday. So, we went through this process like everybody else. So I think that our perspective, our thought process about how we think about the world is critical to how we feel, right? The emotions, whether that's anxiety or depression or concern or whatever it might be. And I think we need to operate on the basis of the things we control and not worry about the things we don't control. And the pandemic, we don't control.
Yeah.
No reason to worry about it. No reason to be anxious about it.
We don't. You guys during the height of the pandemic, since you're all together anyway, were you able to continue to get together, or did you isolate yourself because maybe you and your wife a little bit?
Yeah, no, because we're older. No, we were in a higher risk zone, but we have all associated together the whole time. And the great thing about living on this little farm, right, is the kids had places to play soccer and ride horses and drive ATVs, and so they weren't as confined. I tell you, my emotion goes out for people who've lived in very confined housing in very restricted areas during this period of time, anywhere in the world. It has been really hard, very challenging for families. And I think it's been very difficult. So I admire those who've gotten through this successfully.
Yeah. So the Rustand compound lived on, and would you just get food delivered and stuff, right? So, I mean,
yeah, you can get food delivered, or you could have a single shopper who goes out to get it. You don't go into stores, you have it put in the trunk of your car. I mean, there are a variety of ways of doing this. The other thing we decided to do is community service. There were a lot of young entrepreneurs at that time who were closing restaurants and bars and closing up their businesses because they didn't have the cash or the ability to sustain over a long period of time. So there's one young restaurateur here in town we frequent, and he had 3 restaurants. And he had closed 2. We just decided we're not going to let him close the 3rd. And we rallied a bunch of friends who eat there frequently, and we bought our groceries through him. We've bought food through him on a regular basis. He's been able to stay open and take care of his employees. And so we hope we've nurtured a business and saved a business during this period of time. We've tried to do that and form other groups around the community for other entrepreneurs as well. And so we felt part of our role as entrepreneurs is to help other entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs create jobs and families and communities. I mean, we have a big impact. We need entrepreneurs to be successful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Always doing good. Thank you. So my last fun question is, if you could go back in time and hang out with somebody from the past who is not a family member, who would that be and why?
That's a really great question. I've thought about that from in different times. I might give you a two-part question. The first is, I'd probably like to go back to the time of the Stoics, Socrates, Aristotle, Epictetus, and others, Marcus Aurelius. They wrote some of the most interesting stuff, including a book that I'd recommend to your viewers, which is called The Manual for Living. It's about 88 pages long. It's a good read, a small read, but it's very stimulating philosophically. But I like the Stoics' approach to life and the way they think about life. And then I think more recently, among the many, my wife and I had a chance to work in the Mother Teresa clinics in Calcutta and meet her and so forth. And she's a wonderful leader. But I had a chance to get to know just briefly Nelson Mandela. I would want to get to know Mandela better. He was a remarkable man, 27 years incarcerated, people hoping he would die, and completely abused when he went into prison on Robben Island, and emerging 21 years later with the guards, all white guards, standing at attention and saluting him as he walked to the boat to go back to the mainland. He had completely changed. And I had a chance to meet him in Washington, D.C. in the early 90s after his release. And of course, the one question is that I had for him is, how did you change? How did you change? How did you make such a marvelous? You went in as a young terrorist. You'd caused all kinds of problems. You were a lawyer by training. You broke limestone for 21 years. You then went to Polesmore prison for 6 years. How did you change? And he said, I read the same poem every day, sometimes multiple times a day, for all 27 years of my incarceration. And the poem is by William Hensley, right? And it's called Invictus. And if any of your listeners have a chance to read that, the final words are, it goes down through the various fates that we experience, and it finally says, I am the captain of my soul.
Wow.
Right? We are the ones who decide for ourselves who we become. No one else is accountable. It's an important and powerful lesson.
That is so powerful.
He learned that when he came out, he could have called for a genocide of whites in South Africa, or, as he chose, to unite South Africa and lead it to its greatest time ever. So he's a remarkable man and leader.
Yeah,
I suspect it'd be fun to spend time with him.
He had every right to be extremely angry.
Yes.
He did the exact. Well, it's funny you mentioned him. I'm preparing. I'm doing another TEDx talk, and the title of my talk is "Enduring Leaders," and I picked 5, and that leaders that I call them enduring because you can truly mark with their life a very clear, before and after of goodness, right? And Mother Teresa was one of my 5. You mentioned her. Nelson Mandela was another one, right? I mean, there's a clear delineation before him and after him, right? And and just the way he led his life with the not only that smile, right, that just invoked kindness, and then backed up by his incredible love and patience and humanity, right, to approaching the situation. So
yes,
yeah, that's a great one. It's so great that you got to. I never had somebody pick somebody to go back in time that they've actually met as well. So that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Warren Rustand, thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your heartbeats with me today, and doing all that you're doing for your family, for the world, for entrepreneurs. Really appreciate it. And I know the Gonzo family's really enjoying this episode as well. If they do want to get in touch with you, what is the best way?
WarrenRustand.com. Send me a message, send me a request, whatever it is, I will get back to you. So no problem doing that, like that. And let me say, David, thank you very much for allowing me to be on your program. I appreciate that. And the good work that you're doing by interviewing people who have something to say, hopefully I did, is very helpful to the people who listen to you and watch you. And I think that's a great contribution that you're making. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Warren. Well, the only thing that I'll request is when this pandemic is over, I want to come visit the farm.
Come visit the farm. We'd love to have you. Come on down.
I would love to. I would love to. I guess according to you, it's going to be March 2022, but maybe beforehand. We'll see.
Hopefully that'll be good. We'll welcome you with open arms. Love to have you.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Warren, and thank you, Gonzo Experience family, for listening, watching. Really appreciate you. More and more episodes coming out every Wednesday. Thanks again, Warren. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and make sure to stay awesome.